This morning, DC dropped the first teaser trailer for Superman, coming out next summer from James Gunn. This is going to be the official beginning of the new DCU. I know Creature Commandos is already out. We're talking about theatrically here. This is the beginning of James Gunn's reboot. And I want to give my thoughts on this teaser trailer because usually with teaser trailers, you don't really see a lot. In fact, if you remember, the Man of Steel teaser just showed him flying, if I think, and that was it, like him doing the big jumps. They barely showed anything. But here they showed quite a bit. Granted, it wasn't a full-length trailer. There wasn't anything really given away as far as details of the plot, but they did show a ton of characters. They actually start the trailer with Superman apparently being just beaten up, just covered in blood, just a wreck with the suit on, with the red and blue suit on, and yellow suit. You know, the classic colors. And then Crypto, the dog, appears to help him out. Now, there was obviously a talk because, you know, there was an image released a few months ago that showed Crypto, and that's something that we haven't ever seen in the live-action Superman movies. I don't remember ever seeing Crypto in any of the movies. He might have been in one of the shows. I haven't seen like all of Smallville or all of Lois and Clark, so I can't comment. But I know that this is the first time that he's going to be in a movie. And really, if it's a film written and directed by James Gunn, who is able to work with material like what he did with Guardians, I think having Crypto there could work. I mean, don't forget that James Gunn also brought Howard the Duck back in the post-credit scene of the first Guardians of the Galaxy. So I trust him with this kind of stuff. I think all of the people that complained that the Zack Snyder Superman was too dark and too edgy and they wanted a more optimistic hero are going to be very happy with this trailer and probably happy with this whole movie because there certainly is a sense of optimism. The trailer actually has a guitar version of the John Williams Superman score. And actually, the composer came out recently. I saw this on social media, and he said that the soundtrack to the film will actually have some bits of the John Williams score. And to be frank, listen, do it, because the Superman music is John Williams' score from 1978. The Batman music is the Danny Elfman theme. I'm not saying I don't like the Dark Knight versions with Hans Zimmer or any. I like them, but there's one classic Batman theme, and it's that one. That's the one people associate with Batman the most. Now, it's funny because recently I got my hands on the copy of the 3-hour and 8-minute version of Superman 1978. This was the one that aired on television, although I got it, the one they put out in 2017, because I had never seen that cut before. It's the long cut of the first film, and I really enjoyed that. So I'm kind of already in kind of a Superman mood, but this does look very, very optimistic. Now, we see not just Superman, we see him as Clark Kent at the Daily Planet in Metropolis with his goofy glasses on. And it's a young Superman, younger than the Henry Cavill Superman, even though David Corenswet, who plays Clark/Superman in the movie, he does look kind of like Henry Cavill. Like, if this were supposed to be a prequel, it's not. But if it were, he would look like a younger Henry Cavill. Like, I could see it. Early 20s Henry Cavill. Rachel Brosnahan plays Lois Lane in the film. She's in the trailer in a couple of shots. We see her there. The trailer actually ends with her hugging Superman, presumably after he saves her. So that love story, it needs to be there. The love story between Lois and Clark is, in my opinion, more important. This is going to blow your mind, but I feel like it's actually more important than even the Mary Jane Peter Parker one. And I understand some folks might not agree with that. And the Mary Jane Peter Parker one is super important. But Lois and Clark have been, no pun intended, married to each other. I don't say that literally. I say that more so the origin of the characters going back all the way. And there have been tons of Spider-Man stories without Mary Jane, especially in the Gwen Stacy era, right? We've seen that. We've even seen recent stories like Amazing Spider-Man and Spider-Verse that really focused more on Gwen being the love interest. Well, Lois is Clark's love interest. Like, that's just the way it is. And I'm not saying you couldn't do a Superman movie without her, but if this is going to be a reboot, you got to have her in there. Nicholas Hoult, that's right, the same guy who plays Beast in the X-Men movies, is playing a young Lex Luthor. To me, he looks a little too young, to be honest with you. I've always felt like he was maybe an older guy to Superman, or that could just be because he's a human and Superman's a god on Earth. Not literally, but you know, he's a Kryptonian. But I've always felt that Luthor worked better as an older guy. But they're really going for a different vibe with Luthor here. You know, from my research, they are going to be borrowing from the Lex Luthor Man of Steel 2005 run and All-Star Superman. So Lex Luthor is probably going to be physically tough. Of course, not as tough as a Kryptonian, but for a human being, he's not just going to be some cowardly runt. Not in this version. So the visuals look incredible. I mean, the flying all looks great. It's just, it's very optimistic and bright and using effects as best as possible. What I was kind of surprised about is that I had always thought that they were going to do keep this a secret, but they actually show Green Lantern in the trailer. Like, he's there. They show Green Lantern, Guy Gardner, and we had already heard that they were going to incorporate other heroes into this film, but I thought that was going to be a surprise. I thought it was going to be like an internet thing. Hawk Girl is also in the trailer. We see them. We actually see them. So you get a little bit of everything here, even if you're not a comic book Superman reader. You see him with Lois. You see him with his with Jonathan Kent. Like, there's a scene of them like on a porch and he's like hugging him. Like, you know, you're going to see those relationships. And again, those are all very important relationships for a Superman movie. You got to have him with his adoptive parents. I'm not sure if they're going to show, I mean, I would assume they would, but I'm not sure if they're going to do what they did in the 78 movie and in Man of Steel, where the first act is going to be on Krypton and shows the planet exploding. You don't really have to show that. You can do it with flashbacks later on, or you can just have it be discussed. James Gunn doesn't really like to do like movies that sort of follow in the same trend from other movies. So I could see them just not putting that part in as like a full sequence at the start, maybe flashbacks when he learns about his identity, or they might just like quickly breeze through it. You know what I mean? Like, we find his origin story in the film, but it's very fast, instead of it taking up an entire chunk of the film like we saw in Man of Steel and Superman 78. There are scenes of like people in the crowd not being happy with him, and there's a guy who throws like a wadded piece of paper at him or a rock or something. They're just, you know, I think that they're trying to play into that whole like idea that Zack Snyder had, where, remember, Zack Snyder wanted it to be like this controversial like Jesus figure, like an allegory of people's rejection of religion and what would happen if Superman was real. You know, and I actually thought that was a very interesting perspective. It did make Man of Steel a bit darker. It really happened more in Batman v Superman. But I think they're doing a little bit of that here. And honestly, I'm fine with it because it is a realistic approach. And you can still have a positive, optimistic, you know, Superman, a colorful movie. You can still do that and have that aspect of the story in there. It's just something that he has to overcome. He has to prove to the world that he is not a bad guy. Unfortunately, much like what we learned in other series, he is probably the cause of a lot of problems, because had he not been on Earth, yes, he would have saved the Earth, but clearly enemies from the past are going to come to Earth seeking vengeance on him. We've seen that. So I'm not saying that happens in this movie, but it's a situation where it's a double-edged sword. He's a protector, but he also brings villains along. They show Superman fighting a dragon in the city, but I think that's Metamorpho. I think that's what's going on there. I don't know that for certain, because there's other characters that have not been shown yet, like Metamorpho. I didn't see Mr. Terrific in this trailer, so they are bringing in more than just Superman. It's going to be an ensemble of heroes, but I think the story is still going to be the story of Superman. Actually, no, I'm wrong. They did show Mr. Terrific near the end of the trailer for like a brief second. I actually went back to look for him a minute ago. I paused the recording, and yes, they did show him briefly. It was like I missed it the first time, so that's how brief it is. It's near the end of the trailer, right before the 2-minute mark. I mean, look, I trust James Gunn. I like the Guardians films. He's a great storyteller. He's a great filmmaker. I'm going to go check out the movie. I just wonder if the people who saw like The Flash and the Aquaman film and kind of gave up on that universe of DC, I wonder if they're just going to be like, nah, I'm skipping it because they keep rebooting this. And like the reboots for the comic books are more accepted than reboots for movies happening this many times in a short span of time. Like, as you know, I've covered this in other videos, and I've had conversations here on the channel with people, and we've discussed, the absolute major issue with these constant reboots, and they took Snyder out, then he came back for the Snyder cut, but then everybody rejected the other stuff, and they said that, just a complete mess that DC has been. They canceled movies and deleted them and took out ideas, and just, it's been an absolute mess. And under James Gunn, if they keep him there, if they let him cook, as they say, there may be some real good positive stuff coming out of this universe soon. We'll see where things go. James Gunn's obviously known as a comedy filmmaker because of his time working with Troma and, of course, Guardians. And there probably will be tons of comedy in the movie, but he does know how to pull at the heartstrings. We've seen that with the Guardians films, all 3 of them. So I think that combination will make for a very exciting movie. I'm looking forward to this. I think it'll be better than Man of Steel. I really do. I really think it will be. We'll see. We'll see where it goes. Anyways, I want to know what you think down in the comments. Superman 2025. I wish it was still called Superman Legacy, but whatever. Anyways, take care. Have a good one.